Hi everyone, thank you for coming. My name is Brian Kennedy.
I'm Douglas Brousseau.
So this session is what's new with billing in PCC EHR. So kind of the whole goal for this session is that we're just trying to show you what billing tools are available in the EHR. As you know, over the past few years, we've been starting to move things over. We'll say this is probably going to be more of a live demo session. The slide deck does have an overview of what items we're covering today with some images there, but just here we're going to have Doug go through and show us, in an actual test server what these things are going to be looking like. As a note, there may be some things that because this is a test server and it's not live because we can't share actual patient information, some things may not be hooked up to the outside, so we may just switch over to some of the slides to show you what that would look like in your practice. But we'll get started. So we're going to look at first the features that we've added in 10.1. There was a couple updates ago. So we want to instantly review a patient's active policies. This is a request just to see, you're in a patient's chart, you want to go and see, very quickly what insurance a particular patient has. We just added that update in the patient glob in the upper right that you'll be able to see the policies there, just listed in below. I don't know if we have a limit for how many it will display. I think it shows all of them that are active, but you'll have those numbered by what is primary, secondary, tertiary, et cetera, for those.
So you just click on the patient glob and it will reveal the details along with other stuff you're used to already.
Next thing we're going to switch over to is entering a custom transaction date when auto-posting your ERAs. Initially, when we had first put this feature over, it was just when you add an ERA in, it's whatever their transaction date is. So if this was something that you were posting later on, and you want to say, well, this is the actual date that the check hit your bank, you can update that there as well.
Yeah, so when I select the file, as I hit the process button, a box will pop up here and ask me which transaction date I want to appear in the account so that these payments will be posted to, right? Sometimes the payers will post date ERA for you. If you'd like to post the file before the deposit actually hits your account, you could. You just have to change the transaction date to be today, not use the remittance date that is post dated, okay? Other times you would want to use the transaction date as, say you're posting a remittance that was supposed to go in last month and it's the first of the month and you want the transaction date to be last month, then you would want to change that transaction date. And that has to do with the balancing and the reports you're going to run. So show me the payments I posted in this date range but only for the previous month, that sort of thing.
So yeah, next thing is a change that's not necessarily something we can show off as much, but it's automatically changing the expected copay to be $0 when a patient has Medicaid secondary. So if you are auto-posting an ERA and a patient has a private primary and they have a secondary that is Medicaid or is marked as a Medicaid plan in your system, so it has that little M next to the insurance name, we've added in features so that when you are posting the ERA, it will notice that. It will see, oh, great. We see the patient has Medicaid. We're not going to, if we have there's a copay that's expected out to primary, most of the time you want to take that and switch it over and say that they have no copay because you want that balance to actually go out to Medicaid. You don't want it to be sitting as personal because the patient, in most cases, they're not going to be actually paying that. So we have that set up as a note for this. This is when an ERA is auto-posted. So if you are doing manual posting, you will still have to change that copay yourself, but if the particular data service was able to be auto-posted and they have that Medicaid secondary, it's just switch that over to $0. Next thing we've added is looking at ERAs and looking at special cases. So if you have a posted ERA, we have a section now that we'll go through and say these are the particular cases that for whatever reason, whether the claim was adjusted 100%, those sort of things, we have those now listed under the special case field.
Yeah, so if I were to select a file here to actually process it and have it post the payments for me, I'll just hit the process button. I'll select my date range here. I get my confirmation screen that yes, I'm going to post this. I hit the process button. After you've processed the file, it takes you to a page which shows the entire file. And you have this auto-processing summary here, the most important part of it, because it's going to tell you if there are any exceptions, any payments that it did not post for you. Okay. Out of those, you're having this section on the right, the posting exceptions, will detail all the various reasons for any payments that weren't posted and give you a tally of how many there were each. The special cases filter here will populate based on the special cases that were encountered in that file. So in this case, we only had a few charges that were adjusted off at 100%. But you're going to see other items in there. Let me hop back to our screen here. So if you can see here under the special cases, I didn't bring my reading glasses, but claim queued to subsequent insurance, copay amounts changed, general adjustments, payments are less than the allowed amount. So what this is really intended to do is to make it easy for you to review the file, because the big change with the EHR's auto posting is that it posts quite literally everything, whereas what you're used to in practice management is probably more like 50 to 60%. So while the EHR posts everything, there are probably some payments that you're going to want to review. Let's say they shouldn't be adjusting something off. So you now don't have to do as much data entry, but you do need to review the file to make sure that those payments were processed properly. So those tools are designed to kind of key you into any payments or situations, in this case, or special cases, that you may want to pay attention to.
So next thing is, while we're still in this ERA, we review a posted ERA by adjustment reason. So those cart cases that you can just say, all right, we have this particular insurance is sending us this cart code, and we want to make sure that we review all those payments because that particular payer may say, oh, well, we're going to be adjusting off a ton of them. And like Doug said, you're posting in the EHR, that it really does try to post everything, even if you do have something that's adjusted or particular items on a claim are adjusted. As long as the charges are there and it sees as a valid way to actually post that, you may just want to filter out by those CARC reasons to say, okay, we know that this is something they're sending us when they're really writing off an item and not paying us, so you can do that search there.
Yeah, for example, so if I wanted to comb through the file for those specific adjustment reasons, let's say I wanted to find charges that were bundled, or the payments, right? I would click on adjustment reason selector. I can scroll up and down through this exhaustive list here, or I can use the search filter. I can type the code itself, or I can type a word that's in the description of the code, okay? So if I were to select, say, 97, I would select 97 and hit save, okay? And then from my special cases, instead of looking at the charges that were adjusted at 100%, I now get this option for adjustment reasons. So that would go through the file for the reasons that I previously selected and show me only encounters that have that adjustment code. So I would immediately see everything that was bundled out of this remit.
Next thing we've added to the ERAs is kind of this weird line that sometimes gets tossed onto your ERAs that are provider level general adjustments. These are things that coming through in the file, they don't necessarily tie to a specific patient. It could be something where they have like an interest payment that they have turned around and say, we're giving you money for this interest payment. Anything else with that are just general adjustments that are tossed onto it that don't have a direct attribution to a patient or a visit. Those are also going to be visible here as well. This particular ERA, I don't think we have any on this one. I would say refer to slide maybe to show what that looks like.
Yes, let's see. Sorry, do I catch myself up? I believe it's this one here, right? So under the special cases, you'd have a line for general adjustments. It'll give you the number of encounters for that. And that would be typically shown at the bottom of the file itself. And you'll get what information the payer sent over to you for that general adjustment. Sometimes it's just like a claim reference number that they assign to it to kind of indicate who the patient was, what the date of service was. I wish they provided more information, but they typically don't.
So moving past the stuff that is auto-posted, let's say you are manually posting insurance payments. The next thing that we added was reviewing procedure names as you manually post those insurance payments. Oftentimes you may just have a code. It may be a code that you're not using as often. It may just be like a one-off for that particular patient, or just codes that are just not as common. So the idea is we wanted to have you have the ability, instead of just looking at a code, if you're really wondering what that was for, having the ability to go in when you're posting those and selecting that.
Yeah, so I just brought up some pending charges, opened them up like I was going to post payments to them. If I click on the CPT code itself here, it'll reveal the description of the code underneath it. And if I click on it again, it will go away.
Another use case for that as well is if you have one particular procedure code, but you have multiple entries for that in your tables, and you have maybe different naming conventions for those, that's another way to have that appear. So you know exactly which one is attributed to that particular patient. Next thing is we added is reconcile or prove out insurance payments in the report library. So that's just a set of reports that we've added in that Doug will show now.
Yeah, so if I bring up the report library, there is a billing category, okay, and we have the payment reconciliation report, okay. If I open this up, it looks much like the deposit report from practice management. You've got options for the posting date as well as the transaction date. You can filter by user, you can filter by location, and also by the payment type or the class, okay. So if I ran this for just today, and I click generate, we'll see what it looks like. I added just a few payments in here so you can kind of see what the details look like. So this would be your payment reconciliation. So the front desk can use this if they'd like to post out at the end of, or balance out at the end of the day. You can use it to balance out your insurance payments. This would ideally be used for a grand total. So if you're a biller posting several remits, you know your total is supposed to be 20,000. If you ran this and it was off, well, then you have some work to do. You need to find, like, hey, well, where do I go to find out which check is off? We also have a couple other reports in here as well. The payment details by check number and the payment totals by check number. So payment totals by check number, you'd be able to isolate which of those 5 remits was off. Okay, it's this one. Then you'd run the payment details by check number. So you'd have that specific one, and you'd see every single payment that was posted to it and find the error. So that's kind of the flow you would typically take.
This next thing is just going to be a slide because we don't have the ability to show it in the test environment, but it's reviewing detailed claim history in the EHR.
Yeah, so if I opened up a patient's chart, so we'll open this up here, I'll go to the history tab and go to billing history. I have the billing history index down here with the encounter that I want to see selected. If I scroll in this upper portion here, we'll get down to this claim history button. Down here, you'll be able to access the entire claim history, which you're used to seeing in correct mistakes. So you'll see everything from the claim was submitted to the reports that are received. The ERA comes in here, and they're all hyperlinks, okay? So you see here on this screen, see the blue links in the middle? So you'll be able to click on the claim submitted and see the claim data. You'll be able to click on, clearinghouse accepted or payer rejected it. So that's how you can view those claim rejections. So you no longer have to use OOPS for that or for anything, but that's for a later class.
And the next slide has an example of what that would look like if we click into the acknowledgments. You'll see here, like Doug said, we have the hyperlinks. That will open up another window in your screen that will come up and show you it'll bring you back to memories of practice management and show you your acknowledgement reports. That will usually, just as a note for this, it doesn't necessarily, it works the same way. It won't necessarily just show that one single patient's acknowledgement because it's viewing the report in its entirety. So we'll see the highlighted section. If I can get my pointer here, highlighted section over there is going to be kind of where it jumps you to in that report, and that's going to be the patient that you're looking at. Next thing we've added in is generate personal bills in the EHR. So again, just something that we're moving over from practice management. Instead of having to rely on going there to produce your bills, you can do so in the EHR now.
Yeah, so under tools, first option is bills. Okay. We have simplified this to help folks. A lot of times people would run bills in the practice management and there's a start and an end date, and sometimes you'd forget to update the end date, and then you'd send out bills that are all inaccurate because it's looking at the accounts as of last week. So now there's no longer a date range. You just select the categories that you'd like. So for here, I'm just going to select current so it doesn't run as long. So essentially, right, there's no more zip code range, there's no more alphabet range. it's select the categories. You should be using cycle billing, hopefully. If you don't know what that is, we can explain that to you, so just contact support about that. So that kind of removes the need for the alphabet range and the zip code range. And so I'll click Prepare Bills. Or in this case, e-bills, right? So if you have e-bills, you'll see an e-bills option in there. If you don't, if you're not contracted with that third party to send e-bills, you'll just see the paper bills option. And so right now it's preparing, running out, looking at all the accounts that would have a current balance. And so it tells me, hey, there's 60 accounts with a current balance. Much like you have in practice management, I can click on the Work with Accounts button. So it's going to bring up all 60 of those accounts. I can sort these however I want by clicking on the column headers. So right now they're alphabetical here, so now it's reverse. Or I can sort by the amount due. Okay, so you can sort this list however you like. If you want to view a statement, you just double click on it, and that will open it up for viewing. So you can scroll up and down through. You notice you also have search filter up here. So if you want to search through for specific text, you can do that as well. Okay. And so I'll hit back. So I can work with any of these. You'll notice we also have a little link to correct mistakes. Let's say this shouldn't have been a personal balance and you need to append it out to insurance. So you can just click the button there and it will automatically open correct mistakes with that account open, so you don't have to search for it. Okay. You also have a link to the payments button. Let's say this is a small balance or a balance that the patient shouldn't be paying, and you can just click on the payments button and post an adjustment to it. Okay. So once I'm done reviewing all these accounts, when I hit the back button, you'll notice that Submit now turns to Prepare, because it wants to make sure that you've not made any changes to the accounts where there shouldn't be a bill sent, right? So it forces you to prepare bills again. And so we'll let this run here. And then we'll actually have to submit these so it can show you the log feature as well. All right, and so it re-prepared, made sure that any changes that I made are accounted for, and then I'll hit Submit Bills.
So like Doug was talking about earlier with, if you have electronic bills set up or not, those are up here as a tab. So when you are in the bill screen, you'll see either one or two options depending on if you have your electronic bill stuff set up. Same thing for the billing messages that we'll get into in a brief period.
There we go. So lets us know that, hey, 60 bills were submitted, and so I'll click the Close button. Up to my log. Now I actually have an entry here to show me every time that I've run statements. Okay. If I were to double click on this log, it'll show me much like what we saw before, where it's showing you every account, what their number was, what was billed. If I double click on it, I can view their statement after the fact, just like I did when I was working with the accounts. Okay. So that's how that works. Notice over here there's an accounts not billed. So that's often helpful. If a statement is generated and let's say a parent says, well, why didn't I get this statement 3 months ago? Because the data service was really old, let's say. You'll be able to go back through each of your build runs and determine why the system didn't create a bill for that account. Okay? Sometimes there's a flag on the account and that held the bill, or it's below the cutoff amount or something like that. So you'll be able to tell why it skipped that account. All right. You'll notice you also have tabs for your billing messages. So each of the aging categories that you have here, the current 30, 60, 90, 120, they each have their own specific build message that can appear. Okay. So you have all of them represented here. Here's current, 30, 60, 90, and 120. These are just text fields. You click into it, edit the message, and tailor it to whatever you'd like. For electronic statements, you are kind of constrained to 3 lines, but if you're printing paper statements, we can make some adjustments for you to make that a little longer. Okay. And so that is bills.
So moving on to stuff we've added in 10.2. So 2 releases back. So we have print a single statement, a single account statement in the EHR. So before we added the bills tool in, the next update we added the ability just for you to go into an individual account. If you just want to send that single bill from there, you can now do so.
Yeah, so if I open up the payments tool, and let's see, we'll pull up account 1465. So here's an account that owes us some money, so I'll double click to open that up. In the history tab, where you would review all the previous payments that they've made, you'll see down here print statement. So I would mash that button. You're also noticing there is a custom field here where we can assign a message specific to only this statement. Okay. You could do that in practice management, but it was kind of buried in the family editor or the edit accounts feature, right? So now that's kind of moved here. So you can tailor a message that'll appear for just this statement and will be removed after the fact.
Next thing we have is item that we had in practice management, which the way it used to be done is going into the correct mistakes program and adding notes for a specific encounter. We have moved functionality for that over into the EHR. So basically we have a field that may be something just as to note. If you don't have this in, it's a new component in your charts and in your payment area. So if this is something that is not present currently, you may just need to go into the protocol builder and make sure that's added into those particular areas. But it's the encounter billing notes field.
Yeah, so like Brian mentioned, it is in the check-in program here. So those encounter billing notes are no longer, only accessible through OOPS, so they can start at the very front of the visit. If the front staff wanted to add a note to why they didn't collect a copay or something like that, they could add that, and that follows the encounter through the whole cycle. Okay. So you'll notice here at the bottom on the ribbon here, you have a button for encounter billing notes. So that's where that's accessible. This works exactly like account notes, so I would just click the button for new note and type in my note with typo and everything. We'll hit the checkbox, and there it is. So same features, the plus button will add a follow-up note to it, the little pencil lets you add, and then the new note will let you add another note.
Next thing we added for this release is recording the payer claim number for claim responses from payers. So the part of the process that we've added in with making changes to charges and payments in the EHR is having that payer claim control number, something that's a little bit more easily accessible for you. So we now have a field when we're editing charges and doing a resubmission for those. There is now a field for the payer claim control number, and that will show that off for you.
Yeah, so when you auto-post insurance payments, it's going to automatically record that payer claim control number, so it'll be accessible if you ever have to submit a corrected claim for that in the future. But when you're manually posting insurance payments, you can add that in as well if you'd like to. Okay, so I'm just going to pull up an account that I know has an encounter. That's pending insurance here. There it is. So if I were coming in here to post a manual payment, notice I have this new box here, payer claim control number. So I can add that in here when I'm posting the payment. Then it will be accessible later on when I'm using the edit charges feature to resubmit a corrected claim. That number will appear in the drop-down box, so I don't have to go find the remit, hunt for this number, and add it in there. It'll just be there. So again, the auto-posted payments will automatically record that for you. It'll just appear in the drop-down. But when you're manually posting, go ahead and add that if you want to make use of that feature.
So like Doug mentioned, the other side of this is editing encounter charges. So again, this was something that we had in the correct mistakes program, or OOPS, over in practice management. So we've added that now into the EHR as well. You're going to be able to find that just by going into a patient's chart, going into history and then billing history, you'll see now you have a new button down at the bottom that just says edit charges. As a note, the difference between like double clicking into this and hitting edit charges, if you're doing claim stuff, go ahead and hit the edit charges button to make sure that you're not going into like a posting screen. So if you have something that you're trying to work on or add information to, just hit the button before double clicking into it.
Yeah, so edit charges. This essentially replaces nearly everything that you did in OOPS. The only thing you can't do in the EHR right now, as far as what OOPS could do, within a slight exception, but printing claim forms. So if you need to print a time service HICVA form, you still need to use correct mistakes for that. And then there are some edge cases with some take-back procedures that you may have posted where you wouldn't be able to delete those here and edit charges, but you'd have to do that in correct mistakes. But by and large, you won't need to use correct mistakes anymore. Okay. So you'll notice here when I open this up, everything is editable. Previously, when you would hit post charges, it would bring you into the encounter and show you what you had posted, but it wouldn't let you make any changes to it. Right? If you had posted a procedure that was incorrect, you weren't able to just change it or remove it. You had to go into correct mistakes and do that. So now I can just come in here and let's say the 99213 was incorrect. It was a 214. So I would just unselect it. And you notice when I uncheck a procedure, a little red note here says, hey, to be deleted. So this will effectively delete a procedure. So this is your F8 key in correct mistakes, right? And then if we needed to add the 99214, I would go ahead and do that, select it, and now this will be in the encounter as well. So this would work for, you know, hey, I posted something that was incorrect, I'm going to remove the incorrect procedure and I'm going to add a new one, or I can just come in here to add a new procedure to the encounter. I could have done that in the other screen as well, but I imagine that everybody will start to use edit charges instead of going into post charges for that. Okay. Same thing with diagnoses, right? When you're in correct mistakes, you used to use the F5 key. That would give you access to a whole bunch of things. You could add ICD-10 codes or reorder them. Well, that's right here. If I needed to add a new code, I would just type in the ICD-10 code, select it, and then come down here and assign it to the procedures. Okay, so much faster, much easier. You also had access to change the billing provider, right? So if I scroll down here, you see the billing provider, so you can change that here, okay? You can actually change the provider of service. I wouldn't advise that unless it was truly an error, but that's something you couldn't actually ever do in practice management. So place of service is here as well. That was F5, right? You'd go down to that second page. Excuse me. Modifiers. F5 gave you access to the modifiers, right? So now you just click on the little drop-down box and all the modified versions appear and you choose the right one. So easy as that, okay? So we can add diagnoses, we can add or remove procedures. We have access to the claim information here. I can change the billing provider if I wanted to. Okay, I can add a referring provider. All that extra visit information is right here. Okay. And then we get down here, we have the payer claim control number. So had I stored something when I manually posted a payment or the payment itself was auto-posted, this field here would be populated with that claim control number. Okay, so I would select it. When I'm submitting a corrected claim, this is the workflow that I would use. I would come down here to the claim control number. I would either type it in if it's not there or select it from the list if it is there. So you'll notice that when I start typing a number in here, these two buttons down here light up. So it gives me an option, hey, is this a replacement or a corrected claim? Or is this a voided claim? So I would select the appropriate one. And then under my claim delay reason, I'm going to go in and choose the 9, just like I used to do in practice management. So that hasn't changed. Okay. The void is definitely new. We previously had not supported voided claims, but we do now. Okay. So I can make all sorts of changes in here. I could even change the date of service if I needed to, right? Could never do that in practice management either. Once I'm done, you'll notice that when I do make changes, it's automatically going to select this box here for queue a claim. That is effectively your F2 key in correct mistakes, batch claim, right? So you don't have to go through the extra step of pressing the button because it just automatically selects it, okay? All right. So the other workflows here is the procedures that you have. If I wanted this procedure here to be personal, I would come in here and select self-pay. So that was your F4 key in correct mistakes, right? The insurance status button. You would press that button, select the procedure, tell it personal or pending insurance. So that's how you manage that. If you have multiple procedures in here, so let's select some random codes, okay? When this claim is queued, because the little check mark here is set, if I don't want one of these procedures to be sent with the claim, I need to select self-pay instead. And then I would hit save and post, and that is the action of actually batching that claim, okay? Then if I want this to pending insurance still, I would just set it back to primary, okay? And if you don't want it to queue a claim again, we just uncheck that box. So when that box is unchecked, it's just going to save the changes that you made here and not submit a claim, okay? So it would be everything that you used to do in correct mistakes, aside from actually pressing the button to generate a claim.
One more thing to add as well, just as a note for this. When you were in correct mistakes before, when you want to delete items, you press F8. And before, you would only make selections for the procedures themselves. There wasn't a separate section for diagnoses and a separate section for procedures like we have here. A note for that is if you want this to properly delete, make sure that when you're deleting items, if you're trying to get rid of the whole claim, for instance, you just want to get rid of it, you don't want it there at all, just make sure that you are also deselecting your diagnoses. That will make sure that when you do hit that essentially save and post, you want to get rid of everything that's in here, and that will allow that to go through. I just know we've had a few calls since this has come through. Just to clarify that is make sure that you are truly getting rid of everything, because the EHR may say, hey, we have these diagnoses that have nothing attached to them. What are we doing with these? And so that would just be, again, double check if you're not able to clear this out and it's not letting you delete everything. Just make sure you're also unselecting those diagnoses.
So this is a big one. Any questions? Anything that say, well, what about this or that? Did we cover everything? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, we're good on time, Nick. Any questions from online?
No, everything was asked and answered.
Great.
Okay.
All right. So the next one that we have is our nice, pretty GUI version of TED, GUI version of TED. So we have the ability now to edit your configuration tables in the EHR. So you'll be able to just go that with configuration. You go down to tables, and that's just going to prompt you with this screen to select which one that you want to edit. From here, just as a note for those who are familiar with TED, we don't have every single table that's in here. This is just the particular selections that we know that clients are interacting with most on their day-to-day basis. If there is something that does need to be changed, please reach out to us. I know some just individual like provider configuration, things like that, if you need to make edits to it, that is still something that you'd have to reach out to us at PCC to make sure we're getting that configured right. But otherwise, those, the most used tables are going to be in here.
All right. Which table should we start with?
We can start with insurance.
Sure.
So a beautiful thing about this is the search filter. Thing that you did not have before in practice management is the ability to say, I just want to look at just my Aetna. You can go ahead and type Aetna in. It will only show those. You just want to look at your UHC or United Healthcare. All of those, you can just do that search filter to filter that out and make sure you're only looking at those particular plans. Especially helpful when you want to look at something particular that's just by batch. You can search by the batch for that and it will trim it by there. So if you're just looking for everything that's going to that particular batch, even though you have different names for those plans, because let's say even for Medicaid, you have managed care plans that are all named different things, but they're all Medicaid, so you want to look those up. You can do that there as well.
Yeah, you can search on the box number. Any text you see on the screen here, you can search by, right? So box number, plan name, payer ID, any of that stuff is fair game. You can also sort the columns too, right? You can click on any of these columns and it will sort it. So much easier to deal with than paging up and down through TED. There is an export button that will dump the contents of this to an Excel file for you. There's also a history button. We'll show you any changes that were made to this entry. So if somebody changed something, there's a record of it in here. We have the typical features for adding a plan, cloning a plan, and editing a plan. When you do add a plan, you'll notice that we've streamlined some of it. There are some indicators in the plan itself that are used for claim submission that are pretty nuanced and only PCC understands them. So when you do add a plan, it's going to ask you what type of plan it is, and it'll set those indicators accordingly. Okay. So for example, if I chose Blue Cross Blue Shield and I hit continue, down here, this little claim filing indicator will automatically be set to Blue Cross Blue Shield. Okay.
We have one question. Okay.
So TED was always restricted to users for admin. In EHR, are there any restrictions of who can get to that table?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's probably by role.
Just so that people can hear, the question that was asked was, in practice management, we had restrictions put in place so that only people who are administrators had access to TED. Are there features that stop that in EHR? And there is. So if you go under the roles administration, same thing of giving people access to billing tools, things like that. If you go to user admin, go under the roles, whoever has the role that you would want to be allowed access into this, you would just make sure that checkbox is checked for them. So if you have users that you don't want to have them, give them access into tables, just make sure that's deselected from whatever role that they're in, and that would be the way to stop it. So it'd be roles based, just like all the other things are in the EHR. Versus, I believe, with practice management, we had hidden files that we would type in the background to say this is the group essentially of who has access to this. And the EHR is just again with roles, so you do it that way.
Yeah. You guys won't see this ID field. That's just a PCC thing. So if you hop in when you get home and where is that? That's not going to appear for you. So clone works the same. You just hit the clone button. Much easier though, because it's pretty common in practice management for people to overwrite entries because they thought they were cloning it and they actually didn't press the button. And yeah, so this is a much improved process here. Okay. So that was insurance. Should we jump to procedures?
Yeah.
So we'll select procedures. You notice from the outset here, you get a lot more information that is pretty relevant, especially like the NDC information. You can see that right from the screen, okay? So again, you can do everything that you could in the other table. You can sort based on the columns. You can search, so if I wanted to see just immunizations, I can type that in and it's finding the immunizations in the procedure group column and just giving me my immunizations. And then I can quickly see what's filled out for NDC, things like that. Okay, I can double click on the entry and it will open it up for editing. Okay, so very similar to what you're used to in practice management. You have the same buttons that you did over in the insurance companies table. You've got the export, you've got history, add, clone, and edit. So edit is just, hey, if I want to select something here and go all the way down here and click edit, I can. It's just easier to double click it though. Right?
Okay. Just one thing of note is, previously in TED, when you were going to duplicate prices and whatnot, you'll see we just have buttons there for that instead of using function keys. You'll just see like copy price. It will by default copy the procedure pricing and any modified versions of that code in whatever is in Schedule A. So if you're trying to copy something down, just note that it's going to be copying whatever's there when you do that duplication.
All right, so if I put new values in there and hit duplicate, it iterates it throughout all the schedules. So. And then you have, let's see, we've also got insurance groups in here and your procedure groups, as well as provider groups, okay? So we'll take a quick look at insurance groups, something you're not having to modify or add to very often, but it's here. So if you wanted to kind of break out your AR in a more granular way with insurance groups, you can. So you could create a group here first, and then that group would be assigned to an individual insurance plan, right? Same thing with the procedures. The procedure groups is down here. Again, not something that you're editing often, but it's available now. Okay?
Okay, the last thing we have to show you for this update and for the presentation in general is writing off account credits. So that is something that we've added in. If you have account credits that you need to take care of, we can go into the payments tool and show you what that looks like.
Yeah, so from the tools menu, I'll select payments, and we'll need to bring up an account. Remember, this is the only place in the EHR you can pull up a billing account's name or number, right? Right now. You can also click on Patient Finder, though. If you want to pull it up by the patient's name instead, you'd have to just click this little radio button here, and now you're looking for a patient, and it's going to find the billing account for that patient. If you already have the billing account's name, you'll just use the default, which is Account Finder, whereas you're looking for an account, okay? So my account is number 71. So when I type in either a name or a number, it's going to bring up that account based on the account number or the results based on the name, and I'll select it by double-clicking on it. It's going to bring me into the posting screen by default, okay? But when I click in the History tab,
I think it was 77, Doug.
yeah, that would make sense because there's no credit to write off there. Thanks, Brian. There we are. So we're seeing the credit here in the green. If I click on the History tab, we've got a bunch of payments here that are creating a credit. So here's a Visa card payment. If I wanted to refund this, I would simply highlight it, select Refund Credits. Okay. Brings up a screen here where I can assign a transaction date for this refund. Defaults to today. I would select a refund type from the drop-down here. So I'll say refund personal, and then I'll assign an amount, 75, okay? And then I'll hit the save button. And you'll notice now there's a little indication under the refunds and reversals column that this was refunded and the date that it was refunded.
Just as a quick aside to this, noting that this is only going to allow you to refund the actual credit amount on the account. If you're looking to do something like that was posted in error, but they have other charges that are personal on the account, but you need to reverse a particular credit card payment, something like that, it'd be recommended to do the reverse payment option instead. The refund credits, as you see now after Doug has posted that, is now grayed out. So if there are no actual credits on the account, it won't let you just send money back to the family. So if you did have to send something back, you do reverse payment. As a note, this also doesn't do any kind of forced linking. If you still have unapplied payments, like this is highlighted in orange here, even though it is unapplied, it's being used to pay something off on the account, so it's not technically a credit because their overall balance is zeroed out. So again, just if you have to have something that you're sending it back to the family, or you had posted a payment and then the card actually declined, you can do your reverse payment instead of that.
Yeah, we have 5 minutes. If I wanted to reverse this check, I simply select it, hit the reverse payment button. Again, I have my date here, and then I would select return check. If I wanted to additionally impose a fee, I could select from the drop down the return check fee and the amount, and I would hit save. So that would back that payment out, and it would additionally add a fee to the account. And then we're seeing that notation here.
I think by default, we added in the return check to all client systems as an item. If there's a different type of reversal that you would like, something like a credit card reversal, cash reversal, whatever it may be, if you have something that you would like to add in, just please reach out to support. We're happy to add that in for you.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions here? Yes.
Eventually, the Lincoln and Lincoln be done in that EHR, this credit, you look at other money.
So.
Do that now, practice measure, there's a credit.
Yeah, no, for that particular item, if you wanted to relink that, all you need to do is double click. So yeah, so if you go back, I don't know if you can cancel the reversal on that.
I don't
Or I think that's
believe
a edit charges
so.
thing, but, well, we have a balance now. If you want to put a loose payment in, we can do that.
Well, here's one. So if I were to double click on any payment, right? So I'll go back. If I selected this payment, if it was unapplied, right? Or even if it's not, you can reallocate a payment that's attached to the wrong charge, move it somewhere else. You would just double click on it. It'll show you the details. So there's 15 here, and you would tell it how much you'd like to apply to any previous balance that's listed below, which is why you're seeing all of these. These are all charges that are available that had a balance at one point that you could shuffle this money to from where it's, okay. So much easier here.
Yeah. Yeah, again, a recommendation for this, or I should say not recommendation, but notes. You'll see when you're looking at this, the distribution section, it starts with the oldest, quote unquote, open charge. So this is stuff where, I guess the analogy like I like to use is, let's say you've got a banker's box and you have a bunch of files in it. So each of those files represent a charge, and it's the difference between having your cash individually in each of the files to mark off what that should be versus you've got loose cash in the banker's box. The overall value is it's zeroed out with the charges and balances if the cash is just sitting at the bottom of the banker box, not in a file. So basically, the system is going to show you the oldest stuff. So by default, if you have a payment and you're trying to apply it here, it's going to apply to the oldest previous balance unless it is already applied here. So it will jump to that, and then it will fill in to the next item, going forward for any of those. So if you are cleaning up, just make note of, the date that you have, and making sure if you are trying to go through and apply payments that it's actually being applied to what it should be, just to help keep that in line. Otherwise, any loose money in the account may just start going towards those oldest payments, even though they're already technically being paid off by this money.
Yeah, and you'll notice when you try to allocate things, it'll give you a little ticker to say, hey, you've got $13 unapplied from what you've put into here to what you told me I'm supposed to apply to a previous balance. So it'll make it a little easier to allocate things through different charges.
Any other questions? Anything online?
There's one. Not sure if you have an answer for it.
Yeah, do you want to read it? Probably just have you read that out loud.
Will there ever be a day when you can have multiple sessions of the EHR open? Practice management makes life a lot easier when using multiple areas of the account by allowing you to have multiple sessions side by side.
I do not have the answer for that.
Will you?
It is definitely a big request, and obviously it's something we can pass along. But yes, at this time, to my knowledge, we don't have anything planned with having multiple sessions opened. It is a request for coming down. I know in our team Get Paid, so our focus is just trying to get you out of practice management and get you in here where it's a little bit easier to learn and easier to use. But yeah, if we do have that, we'll absolutely pass. We have tons of people at Wishing Well and whatnot. We're happy to pass that along. Any last questions? Yeah.
Going back to what we discussed in the meeting with the Medicaid, with cost of secondary, is there anything in place for if that's your commercial policy and a payment is selected, say you've got two Blue Cross policies, one primary and secondary, you've got the Blue Cross primary with $20 per case selected. How does that work? I mean, is there anything in place for that secondary balance to go because you consider it?
Yeah. So the question was, if a patient has two primary, they have two Blue Crosses, for instance, and they have a $20 copay, it wasn't paid by primary, or it's going back in and they have another private secondary, do we have anything in place for that? Unfortunately, we don't. The thing for us to be able to do that math and have it change that copay by default for auto posting is that whatever it's going to after is a Medicaid plan. So that would be how we do that. As far as manually posting those, you can always change the copay, but for auto posting, it doesn't let you do that.
Well, and to kind of tail on that question, going back to the Medicaid being secondary, if your primary patient, if those payments in place,
I mean, right now, the only thing that's being changed is the copay amount. So, yeah, so if there's payments in other portions of it, on the screening codes, things like that, those payments are still going to be there. Those are kind of those situations that we looked at for looking at like adjustment reasons and whatnot to dig into those further. But right now, the math for that, as far as changing it, really only applies to the copay. Per usual, if you have payment or non-payment for that instance of those items, if they have something where if it's being applied to their deductible and then the rest of it's being adjusted off, that ends up being a contract decision. The primary saying the patient does actually owe this. If that's something that contract-wise is okay to be getting sent to Medicaid for them to cover that, then you would still have to go in, remove adjustments, and then whatever that remaining balance does need to go there. But at this time, we only have functionality for it to adjust the copay going up. Yeah, thanks for the question. Any other questions?
Can we add notes to refund transaction, like check issued, cash, or posted back to credit card?
So we can't tie that directly to that item, but if you could go into the payments tool, I don't know if we have it on the test server. So if you scroll down, there are account notes that are there. So while it doesn't tie it to that specific transaction, you can add note fields in here to update what you've done. So if you've sent something back on a particular date, you can add the information in here to say what you've done. So account-wise, if you're looking at the payments tool and you go in to see that history, then you can see that there. It also will appear in any other sections of the chart that have account notes visible. That also is going to show it here. So while it isn't tied directly to that transaction, it is going to be visible in the account notes field. So we'd recommend you use that. Yeah, so Doug is showing off. You can see them in this particular chart under the demographics. There's account notes as well. So anything you're doing there will be listed in the account notes. Okay.
I'm interested in internal controls. So, can a biller ever refund too much? In other words, can they get more than what is due?
No, because the only other option would be reversing the original payment. The system won't let you go beyond that. So it's only going to be able to say, like, this is how much you need to reverse. Now,
Okay.
If they're doing something else, I mean, technically you could create a false charge or things like that. But the reality, as far as an individual payment is concerned, if you reverse that, it's just going to be for whatever that payment amount is. You're not going to be able to say it's a $75 payment and then refund $100, something like that.
Right.
At maximum, it would just be the $75.
Suspicious activities going on.
Yep.
Is all of this in the billing side, controlled through the roles? So my nurses won't have access to this information in the EHR?
As far as like the payment tool, they're going to be able to see balances and whatnot that are present in the charts, because that's just something that's included. Like during check-in, you would see those. But as far as the ability to make payments, I don't know if you want to go into user admin and show the role section. We can double click into one of those. So as far as configuration to go in there and make changes, the payments, the tool itself, if it stops them from being able to make payments, if you don't want certain users to have that, they would need to have that checked.
They go into a nursing role, and there's no crossover if I'm using nursing role.
Yeah, the whole thing is if your practice under nursing role, if you don't have payments checked, you don't have a few of those items checked, then that would be, they wouldn't have access to those. If their only role is nurse and the nurse role does not include that, then they won't have access to it.
Still see it.
As far as balances, yes, because the balances themselves are part of the account balances and whatnot, but they won't be able to have like the action on it per se.
Notes?
I believe I don't think account notes are hidden. I think those are visible.
Yeah, there is no independent control over whether they can post a payment and then also access the history or not, right? They either have access to the payments tool completely or they don't, right? So you couldn't have somebody able to post payments but can't change a historical payment, right?
But can they see the account notes? If I've got
Yeah, those are in the chart. So if you don't have access to the payments tool, you can always view the account notes in the chart.
I don't want them to have access to the inner workings
Okay.
So that's what I'm asking, is there a way that they won't see that this family is doing this?
I have some ideas. Let me talk to you after, because I think I have some weird workarounds we could work with, but I just want to I know we're getting close to time and wanted to grab if anyone else had any other further questions. Okay. Anything from online before we wrap up?
I think most of it was answered. The biggest thing was just making sure that I was summarizing the questions in the chat, just because they don't hear the audience. I think we're good.
Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you all for joining us.